Hey y'all, and welcome to another video. If you've been here for the past few months, you may have noticed me speaking about a book buying pause or the fact that I wasn't buying books for the first quarter of 2026. I don't think I've spoken in depth about that, what it was, why I was doing it, what the exact period was, what the parameters were, and part of that was because I really didn't know how it was going to look. I said, I don't want to buy books for a little while. I need to slow down. I'm getting a little overwhelmed by the volume of my physical TBR at home. Because I didn't have a real solid idea of what this book buying pause was going to be exactly, what it would look like, how long it would last, I didn't really want to speak about it. I just didn't have a good idea in my own mind how it would turn out and what it would look like. First of all, let's talk about exactly what it was and why I did it. Initially, my idea was to not buy books for the first quarter of 2026. However, I had this idea on January 2nd. So from January 3rd to March 31st, I did not buy any new books. I did have pre-orders that had already been ordered during that time and already been on my physical TBR. So I let those come. I think I may have canceled one or two, but for the most part, anything that had already been pre-ordered before I made this decision, I just let it come. And the reason for this book buying pause, as I call it, personally, I don't like the word ban. When people say I'm on a book buying ban or I'm putting myself on a book buying ban, I don't know, I don't really like how it sounds. So I called it a pause. I knew it would not last forever. I knew that 3 months felt uncomfortable enough to show some change and growth, but not so uncomfortable that I wouldn't be able to stick with it. And the reason I wanted to do this was at the very beginning of January, I think it was January 2nd, my mom and I went on a little book buying adventure day around town. So I think we went to 3 bookstores. I bought something in every bookstore. But the one that really got me was Eagle Eye. They were having a huge end of year, beginning of year inventory sale. And we were right in the sweet spot where there was still a ton of inventory, but the percentage off was pretty high. I always love shopping in Eagle Eye, and getting things used is especially exciting, and then getting an additional percentage off is even more exciting. And I think I left there with 12 books and graphic novels, like a mix of both. I also bought something in the other bookshops we went. In one shop, I bought 1 book, and I think in the final shop, I bought 2 books because I really felt like, oh my God, I've really bought so many books today already. When I got home and started integrating everything into the physical TBR and like my personal little spreadsheet, it started to feel overwhelming. I'm always going to be somebody with unread books on my shelf. I'm passionate about buying, collecting, and reading books. I just am. I love all aspects of that reading process. I hear people say book buying and book reading are 2 separate hobbies. Not for me. I like the collection. I also love the reading, and I love being surrounded physically by my favorite books. Saying all of that, I also know my limitations, and I was starting to feel overwhelmed by the constant wave of new books coming in, and that I really wasn't making any progress on what I had. Books were falling farther and farther down the priority list to the point where when I reviewed my actual full TBR, there were a lot that didn't even interest me anymore, and that was a little bit of a wake-up call. So in the end, honestly, it was kind of a fun period. Maybe not fun in the traditional sense, but I always thrive with a little bit of discomfort. It brings on growth. It can bring on some enlightenment in some areas, like you can change the way you think about certain things. And I enjoy that. I genuinely think that is fun. Life is growth and change. And if you can embrace it instead of working against it, there's so much potential. And so, yeah, I thought it was kind of fun. Here we are at the end of it. It is officially April. Today is April the 4th, and I have broken the book buying pause. But let's talk about what the aftermath of it looked like before we get into that. In January, when I decided to stop buying books and put all of those new books into the spreadsheet, I was at 369 books on the physical TBR. I didn't personally ever want to be this close to 400 unread books. So it was shocking. In this period, I have taken that number down to 311 books. Now, I did not read 58 books in 3 months. Like, let's be clear, I did not read all of those books that came off of my TBR in that period. Have I read more than that this year? I sure have, but I also read a lot of library books. I have advanced copies of books, and I love my Kindle. So this is a combination of reading the bulk, reading those books from my physical TBR, also purging or gifting them to others. And then I did cancel a couple of pre-orders. And like I said before, those do go on my physical TBR spreadsheet. Those go into the larger number. I do like numbers and I do like stats. And so that is almost 16% of my full TBR, which I thought was pretty incredible. I didn't think I would make that much of a dent, but it feels really good to have made that impact. And I think there's a misconception about motivation. I think for most people, motivation is not something that strikes and then you do the thing. I think people confuse inspiration with motivation. So you get the strike of inspiration that I'm going to do this thing, right? But motivation, in my experience, and I think for a lot of people, comes after the inspiration and after the doing of the thing. Once you start to do the thing and you see the results, then motivation builds. But it's not as if most people, again, maybe there are people like this that just wake up with motivation and do it immediately. Take the action, do it immediately because they were motivated to. I think motivation really grows from taking action in the first place. And the taking the action is the hard part. The inspiration, easy. We can all think at 10:30 at night, I'm gonna start waking up at 4:30 a.m. and I'm gonna work out and I'm gonna do this many sit-ups and this many pull-ups and I'm gonna, do all these activities. It's really easy to find inspiration. It is harder to take action, and then motivation is like the reward, right? Because you felt how good taking the action feels and the results of that. And then you're motivated to keep doing the thing. And that was my experience here. It was hard at first, okay? I went book shopping multiple times. We had book club at Barnes & Noble multiple times. And I just had to look around and peruse and not bring anything home. I had friends who said, like, you're doing this to yourself. You can stop at any time and buy books. It's not that serious. But for me, it was. For me, sticking with it was that serious. And I'm really glad that I did, because not only did I reduce my TBR by 15.7%, but I also showed myself that I can absolutely go 3 months without buying any books. And I think proving those things to yourself is more important than proving it to anyone else. My goal in all of this was to build a curated collection of books that I absolutely love and plan to reread again or revisit again in one way or another. It might not be a full reread, but it might be like the way I'm feeling about the Elsie Silver books now is going back and seeing those names that I flagged and how they connect with other characters, almost like reference. So that's what I want. I want this library. I want to look at every book in this library and just sigh with, oh, I love that book. Oh, I love that book. Oh, I love that book. That's what I want. It's not just the collecting for me, it's the curation of that collection. So wrapping it up, where do things stand today? Well, like I said, I ended March with 311 books on the physical TBR. I can say that as of today, I have 315 books on the physical TBR, and that might seem antithetical to this whole process, right? But the book buying pause is over. And one of my top priorities was to pre-order some books that I had been waiting for, that had been announced during that period, and I had been putting on a little list. I am also going to revisit how I pre-order books. So my focus now is pre-ordering either special editions from certain retailers that I would like to be certain I can get from that retailer in that edition, or signed copies of books. So Waterstones especially does a lot of signed pre-orders with T. Kingfisher, and I tend to like their versions better than the US versions of a lot of things. So those I can pre-order, no problem. Otherwise, like Death on the Lanai is coming out in June. And it's just a regular paperback. There's really nothing special about it. They're not offering a Target special edition with an extra chapter, or, a Barnes & Noble special edition with a word from the author and a sit down, an annotated chapter or whatever. So something that I thought might actually be fun would be to go out and buy books on release day in person. It's something to look forward to. It's an active way to buy books and not passive like pre-ordering them. And it gets me away from Amazon a little bit more, which is where I had been doing a bulk of my pre-orders. I'm sorry to say it, but I was. Okay, so aside from the ramble about pre-orders, I did pre-order 5 books. One was Parade of Horribles by Matt Dinneman. I did order that from his local, I think it's Invitation Bookshop in Washington State, because they do a signed pre-order. I have Amy Dawes next to, it's actually book 3 and book 4 in the Wait With Me series, and then that series is complete for the re-release. I also pre-ordered Megan Quinn's Rules for the Summer. It's a special edition, and I want that version of the special edition. And then I ordered Grim Tidings by B.K. Borison, same reason. So there's those 5. And then so far in the month of April, I have finished 2 books from my physical TBR. I'm working my way towards books 3 and 4 from that as well. So that's how we end up back at 315 when only a few days ago we were at 311. I have pre-ordered those 5 books, but also I have one in the flesh kind of book that is added to the physical TBR. This is The Republic of Thieves by Scott Lynch. This is book 3 in the Gentleman Bastard series. I did also order Red Seas Under Red Skies, but I had already read that from the library. I wanted the physical copy to go with The Lies of Locke Lamora, and I want to be able to read this myself in my own hands, and I'm really happy to have it. I'm really happy to finish this series too. I think I'm going to be sad, it'll be bittersweet, but I'm glad to have it. So that wraps up the current numbers. My overall goal is still the same, to create a really curated collection. And like I mentioned before, I'm never going to stop buying books completely. I'm never going to not have unread books on the shelves. It's just not me. But I think being more mindful about what comes in and how much of it is also just as important. I had the idea of every 5 books that I read from my physical TBR, I can buy 1 new book. I just don't think that that kind of restriction or standard is really going to work for me. I am, like I said, again, just very passionate about buying, collecting, and reading books. So I would really rather be a little looser about what I'm allowed to buy and when. I would rather the situation, moment, and what I find more dictate what I bring in. So let's hope that that sticks. I really would like to see the number still consistently come down. That is my overall goal. I'm not sure how that's going to look, but I will say I haven't gone hog wild yet. A big goal was to not just instantly go to Amazon and order like $300 worth of books and scratch that itch of not buying books for the past 3 months. So I'm pretty proud of that. I do have some priority buys, one being like the Saga series. I think I need volumes 10, 11, and 12, but I would like to see if Eagle Eye has them used. I think that's a great way to buy books, and they're always in great condition. So I'd rather see if they have them used there than just get the instant fix of ordering from Amazon or even going to Barnes & Noble and seeing if they have them there. I like a little bit of the hunt. So yeah, that's it. That's where we stand today. I feel really, really good about the whole process. It's been, as I mentioned, really fun for me, and I did enjoy it. I could see myself doing it again, maybe in the 3rd quarter of the year, just see how that shakes out and how we're doing overall on the total number. That's all I have for you today, guys. Thank you so much for following along. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.